Hello everyone, this is a makeup recording for the first session of Transformative Assessments, which is the second part of Kent ISD's digital assessment series. My name is Craig Steenstra. I'm your facilitator for this course, and I'm an educational technology consultant with Kent ISD. You can see my picture down there below. And you can also see the links to our documents. This was originally recorded as a web conference webinar. So this link here was for that. You don't have to bother with that in this case, but you will want to access this document here, j.mp/das1516. It will take you to this document, which contains lots of useful links and context that I will be covering through this recording. So a couple of things in terms of the course housekeeping. If you have not yet submitted your application for sketch hours and you want to do that, you need to do that as soon as possible. You should have received information and documentation for that process, and if you still need that, you can contact me at the email here, craigsteenstra@kentisd.org. Note that you do have to attend at least 3 of the sessions, or at least 3 hours of the sessions, in order to get any credit, and you can earn up to 5. And that also requires you to attend live, either in person or via the virtual simulcast. In addition to that, if you want to know anything else about the requirements of the course and the content, we'll cover some of that through here, but you can always feel free to contact me directly. So, in this document, I'm going to scroll down into our first session here, getting transformative with formative. That is the tool that we are focusing on today. And our agenda, we're going to look at the course in general, provide an overview, do a little review of the tool formative, because remember this is part 2, and Andrew Steinman, my colleague, covered formative at a basic level in part 1. If you did not attend that series, that's okay. I'm structuring this in a way that will make this learning accessible to you, and providing opportunities for you to fill in some of the gaps that I am glossing over. After that, we're going to look primarily at strategies for enhancing assessment by using formative. That's what this whole course is about, transforming your use of assessments. And then throughout, we're going to be doing session tasks where I'm going to pause the video, ask you to perform some of these tasks, and then move on. So it's kind of a progression, if you will. So looking at the course intro and overview, this whole course is designed for you to transform assessments. That doesn't necessarily mean that you need to change everything that you've ever done. If you look at the dictionary definition of transform, some of the entries include to change in composition or structure. So by making it digital, you're doing that. Changing the outward form or appearance, or changing the character or condition. So a lot of what we're going to be showing you incorporates all of those entries. But really, what I want to focus on are these 2 things. I want to highlight features that increase what you and students can do with assessments, and explore options that allow for easier and better peer and self-assessment. So a lot of these tools have features that help you do things that you couldn't do before, and they also provide you options to make the implementation of assessment, as well as things like peer and self-assessment, a little more fluid. Okay? So our topics are these 5. So each week we're going to focus on 1. This week's formative, next week Google Forms, week 3 Edify, and then we're going to close off with rubrics part 1 and 2. Alright, so now that you have that, I want to go into a little review of formative. If you click this link, this learning guide, this is from session 1 that Andrew made, and this contains all of the core information that you would need on formative. So if you go into here, you can click on the table of contents for these various elements of the system, and as you scroll down, you can see all of those components. So I encourage you to go in there, even if you did attend session 1 and have some experience with formative. I think this will be a helpful document to make sure that you know what's possible. So if you click to the formative site, it will take you directly to it. But some of the key features that I think make this tool possess the potential for transformation is the fact that students can draw their responses with a mouse or on a touchscreen. Teachers have the ability to display a live view of answers that allows so many different strategies to be enacted around review, evaluation, analysis, and peer and self-assessment. Teachers can also upload existing documents like worksheets and or quizzes and embed answer types in those tests so that students can have a digital experience and teachers can reap the benefit of having them all in digital format and grade easily, respond easily, provide more feedback. Can also embed content within those questions. So if you want to have a learning component built in there, you have that option and you have the ability to organize all that in one place. So what I want you to do is click on this link and that will take you into an assignment. It takes you to this page. They always come up with these quirky things. And basically what you can do, going back a step, I was logged in. You can, when you click on that link, click continue without logging in and then just provide your name. So I'll do BC and begin. Your students would do something similar to this. And I have 4 different questions asking you to do different things. So first one's draw a graph. You have the ability to draw, change colors, enter in different text, and or add an image from your computer. So all of those things are possible for answer choices, and students can also click on this hand and delete different elements by clicking the trash can. So these are 4 different questions. This will help you see some of the question types as well as some of the ideas that you could use with your students. For this text one, I wanted to give an ELA or literacy based question. I just took a screenshot of this text and added it as an image. So it's asking you to underline portions of it. And you can see what that experience is like. So I'm going to ask that you pause this video and take a few minutes to complete that assessment. Okay, so I am in as my teacher account. Now that you've taken that assessment, I'm going to go into that assignment. So for those of you who haven't seen this before, this is the teacher dashboard, if you will. And when you create an account, you'll see you have different folders for your different assignments. Some of them are pre-made. I have this folder with all these pre-made checks for understanding. So I could take these. When I click into one, I can edit or replicate to make a new version and then edit them for what I want. So it's good to have some templates around that you can quickly make. But in this case, I made the assessment for transformative assessments and I called it totally transformative. So I have this option to edit or assign, and when I click assign, this is something that I did beforehand. It takes me to this page and I can either share it with everyone and give them this code, and this is the code that they enter to get to it, or I can provide a link like this and I could post that on my website or wherever I want people to access it by email, and it would take them right to it. If you want to be able to maintain ongoing records for students and the ability to provide feedback, you do want to create a class and assign it to a class, and then the process would be the same. So if I turn on, it's going to be for my class. I give them that code, and only people who are enrolled in my class will be able to take it. They'll be prompted to log in, and it will look to make sure that it is the right user. So for me, one of the strategies that I want to focus on, I'm going back to our document here and getting into the strategies for using assessments with formative and transforming the options is using this live view. First of all, to incorporate peer and self-assessment. And in thinking about that, I can go to the live results of this assignment, and as they're coming in, I can choose which question I want to look at. Alright, and let's say I wanted to have students view all of the different options out there. I could have them reflect on their answers, and based on what they see, or through conversation or analysis, they could go back and change their answers. There's no resubmission. They could go back into that code, enter it, alter their answer, and it would automatically be updated. As a teacher, I can click on the answer. I can give it a point total by sliding it, and or zoom to get a greater view. So if I want to show this to the whole class and say, okay, this is what so-and-so answered, I want you to think about what is missing or what could be added. And I could use that as a form of reflection or evaluation, peer review, give feedback, and then make changes. Over here I can hide the names if I want to show them all at once, or show them if I want people to be accountable for it. So lots of options for how you want to do it. If it is assigned to a class, I would have the option to provide feedback right under this grading, so I could say, yeah, you did good, but you may need to change a few things there. So, going back to our document, that's peer and self-assessment. All of this could be done on a projector or on their personal devices if they have that access. I also think there's an option for incorporating collaborative and cooperative learning through this process. So in that case, let's say I only have 4 devices, or maybe even 2, or even 1. I could have different groups answer different questions. So for example, I have 4 different questions in this quiz. I could provide 1 question for group 1, 1 question for group 2, 1 for group 3, and 1 for group 4. As their answers come in, we could evaluate them as a class one by one and have conversations around that and dialogue, and those groups would have to cooperate together to present their answer as well as defend their answers, and that could result in some deeper learning. All of this would be very difficult to do with paper and pencil if you had students submitting it that way. It'd be harder to display and harder for others to see. The other way I think that is useful, those live results, is for continuity of instruction. I could display those answers at the beginning of a lesson in a day to connect from the previous lesson and get people thinking about it again. Or I could revisit it at a later date to review or link back to something that we had studied before. So those are all great reasons and ways in which you can enhance your utilization of these assessments. So, enough talking from me. We're getting to session task part 1, using the live results. So I want you to pause this video, create a new assignment that you could use in an upcoming lesson, add a question or upload an existing document and add a question to that, and then reflect on how you can use that assignment in your position. This says share your ideas in the chat. I'm going to take that out. You could share those ideas with me via email or just share it with somebody that you know. So I'm going to pause. I want you to pause too and see how well you can do it. And remember that you can refer back to this learning guide or anything on here for ideas, or you could just Google how to do blank in Formative. Alright. Okay, so hopefully you were able to complete session task part 1 with ease. If not, hopefully you had the resources or have the resources to follow up and get what you need. I'm focusing now on ideas for embedding content. This is another area that I think Formative excels beyond traditional methods of assessment. So the reason I think that is you can add learning resources around questions for absent students or any students for that matter. Remember, this is formative assessment. We're not using this for summative. We're using this in the process of learning to inform us on where our students are and for students to access content and to gauge themselves how well they are doing with our content. So giving this to an absent student helps them to, one, show what they know, but also if you add content in there like a video or a website around that learning objective, they can get that learning and then follow up to show if they actually learned it. So one example I had here is you could facilitate an assignment through Formative. You could start with a what you know about blank question, see what they know going into things, add some learning content in between. Could be a video, a website, or just text that you want to share with them. And then finish it off with a what you learned or a content-based exit ticket question. So let me show you how that looks in the system. So I always, if I don't know where I am in Formative, I just click the Formative up here. That takes you back to your dashboard. And I'm going to go back into my totally transformative assignment and edit. So from this view, I am going to be back in my build portion. And when I scroll to the bottom of this, I'll see all my options for adding content. So I can add a question. And we didn't look at this before, but this is where you probably figured out. You can add multiple choice, show your work, short answer, true, false. But I'm going to choose the add content option. So if I want to add an image to showcase something like how to do something or an example of what I'm looking for, I could do that. I think the most versatile one is text block. So I'm going to choose that. And let's say I want to add info on how to make graphs, because that's what my first question is about. So I'm going to ask them to make a graph, and then I'm going to put in ideas about how to make graphs. I can use this tool editor to embed content if I wanted to. So I could toggle to HTML, put in a YouTube video, switch back, and then put in text info. So I could say, watch this video, ... and give instruction about what I want them to do. Switch to HTML, enter in that embed code, and then I could provide instructions below that. In this case, I'm just going to say, go to this site and learn about graphs. Alright, so I'm going to make this site into a hyperlink. So I'm going to keep that highlighted. I'm going to go to a new tab and say, how to make graphs. And I don't want Excel, so I'm going to take that out. And let's just say this is the one that I want. I don't know how good it is. I'm just going to copy that link, go back to Formative, and whatever is highlighted, when I click link, insert link, and paste that link, I'm going to choose open a new tab, insert. Now that's going to take students to that site. And I could put something more in there if I really wanted to, but you'll notice that this automatically saves. I don't have to save it, and if I want to move it up in my assignment, I just click this arrow to get it up to the spot where I want it to be. So you can see that I've done this before. I don't want this old one. I'm going to get rid of that one, move my text block up all the way, and now it's actually positioned right after the graph question. So that is how you add content. And while I'm looking at it, you'll notice that you can change the point value for your questions too. So if you're doing a 4-point Marzano scale or something that fits with a grading scale of your own, you can change those point totals and determine proficiency based on whatever criteria you have for that. So, your task part 2 is to embed some content in the assignment that you created and position it in a place where it makes sense to that student. That's part 2. You can add some additional questions, and again, it says share thinking in the chat. We're going to take that out and I encourage you to share your thinking somewhere else. So I'm going to pause. I want you to pause the video too and take the time to do that. Okay, here comes the final section of this recording, And this is all about sharing ideas and assignments with colleagues. One of the nice things about Formative is that it makes that pretty easy. So if you, let me explain why this is valuable first. Part of the reason is because you, as a grade level or content area teacher, shouldn't be responsible for creating all this content. It's more sensible, logical for you to spread the duties out so that you all can access the content similarly and not have to put in all the work for creating it. Even though it is pretty simple, it's more simple when there's more hands involved. So if you go to your assignment, I'm going to go back again to my dashboard, go into that assignment. There's different ways that you can share, but from here you can share with other teachers. So if I want to share that link with my colleagues or others, then when they click on that, or if they're in GoFormative and enter that quick code, they'll be prompted to accept that quiz, and then it would be added to their assignment area. Or you could give them this link. You could email all of your grade level or content area colleagues, email them this link and say, hey, I made this quiz on graphs, or this assignment. Click on this link and add it to your formative, and you can use it in your class. So I am always advocating people trying to be consistent across classrooms, and if this is a strategy that you and your colleagues agree is effective and useful, and meeting your building and personal goals, then doing it together and ensuring that people are doing it for all your students is a research-based and positive practice. So, the last thing I want you to do is to complete that task. But rather than pause and finish things out, I'm going to assume that you're going to do that on your own to make sure that you have those skills and that familiarity. A couple things to keep in mind. I already mentioned this. There's no resubmission option. Students just change their answers as long as you keep it open. On mobile devices, there's no keyboard text entry. So you noticed that, or you may have noticed, on the assignment that there was a place for you to enter text. Let me go into... So in this quiz, sorry that took a little while, I have these options to add text of different sizes. On the iPad you don't have that, you only have the option to draw. I have noticed a couple of times when drawing with a mouse, those lines don't always respond as well as I'd like. You can ask kids to refresh the page, refresh the browser, and see if that helps. But I just want you to be aware of that so there's no surprises when you try it. Also, there's no standards alignment that's available in those assignments, but you could add that if you export the data. So one of the options that you have from your live results page is to export, and that will give you an export of the scores that you have assigned to students, and then you can respond to that and try to organize your data based on those standards. So that's it for this week. Remember that next week we have Google Forms, and it's going to be Tuesday at 3:30, live or virtual. If you're watching this, hopefully you can make it live because that will be better. And as always, please feel free to contact me with any questions.